All right, well, good evening, and thank you for coming. I'm very delightful to be here and to share about what I'm passionate about. And I'm very excited about tonight's presentation, as this was the first big change I did in my own life. You see, when I graduated from culinary school, I was quite big. I was looking like a proper chef. You know, there's an expression, you cannot trust in a skinny chef. People would have high confidence that I knew what I was doing. Back then I was 116 kilos, and as I went on a whole food plant-based diet, within half a year I have already lost 30 plus kilos. And what I experienced was I had more energy, I had lower pain, and so many other benefits. I have dyslexia, meaning I'm not the best when it comes to spelling, I'm a bit slow when it comes to reading, but I figured and I learned on a whole food plant-based diet, my reading skills became much bigger. My brain started to improve, and I just experienced so many benefits of a whole plant-based diet. And I'm very excited to share a lot of these experiences with you, because as it comes to changing our lifestyle, there's so many different things where we will benefit. I would like to suggest two different ideas for you tonight, and we will focus on the lifestyle change of things, because there's two different approaches to treatment, and one is through medicine and one is through lifestyle changes. Let me come up with this idea for you. Let's say that you're out driving and you see one of these little lamps in your car starts lighting up. What are you going to do? Are you going to continue driving? Are you going to take out the little light in between so you cannot see the effects? Or are you going to stop and try and fix the issue? This is basically what lifestyle medicine is all about, because when it comes to medication, we're just curing or helping the symptoms to go away through medication. But with lifestyle, we look at the root issue, we treat that through lifestyle changes, and usually the issues vanishes by itself. Another idea is, let's say you have a headache and you take a pill. Was it because of a lack of chemicals inside of your brain, inside of your body, that led you to no longer have a headache? Or was that pill just helping you not to feel the symptoms of the headache anymore? Headaches are often due to not enough water, so we'll be dehydrated. It could be some tension, some muscles that are very tight we have in the back, and it can be many other different things. So by taking a pill, we basically shut off the lights and we don't no longer see the symptoms anymore. I like to put on the detective hat and the binocular and then see to see the main issues. What is the causes of it? And there's so many different things that we can look on. My younger brother have a very good friend, and he was suffering from what is called cluster headaches, also known as suicide headaches. And it's super painful. And basically it should feel like if you get bitten by a bullet ant. Have anybody heard about bullet ants? Yeah, a few of you. It should literally feel like you're being shot. So he would go around a couple of times during the day and he would experience these very bad types of pain with his headaches. And my younger brother asked me if I had heard about this type of disease before. I hadn't. And I was just thinking, I wonder if he smokes. Because often headaches and these type of things are connected to low circulation. So when I asked him about if he was smoking, he said yes. And then I came up with a plan how he could get rid of the headaches through logic and through natural reasoning. So I advised him to stop smoking, and I gave him just very simple ideas of things he could change within his lifestyle, so he wouldn't be facing these issues anymore. So I asked him to no longer smoke, to stop everything have to do with alcohol, go on a more plant-based diet, not have any spices, and lower the sugar content of his diet as well. And within a few days, the headaches no longer became an issue for him. There's one time where he was going to the city, going into a pub with some of his friends, and he was just starting to drink half a beer, and he started to feel that the symptoms of this headache started to occur again. He put the bottle away, he started to drink some water instead, and the symptoms started to fade away. He didn't have this like very bad headache. So what he concluded was that his smoking, his alcohol, and his poor diet was one of the contributing factors to his headache. So if he would change his lifestyle, he wouldn't experience this disease of him any longer. So when it comes to changing of the diet, this is one of many causes of diseases, and we will look at mental health and how to improve mental health tomorrow. But just tonight, I'd like to focus on what we can do with diet and what is the cause of various diseases, from diabetes to cancer to osteoporosis. What I like about diet is, and what I see the purpose of the diet is it is to improve blood circulation, cell oxygenation, and gut health. A plant-based diet high in fiber can slow cancer growth, strengthen the immune system, and prevent and treat lifestyle diseases, and also improve quality and life and also your mood. We'll look more on the last topic in much more detail tomorrow. Hippocrates said, "Let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food." And this is exactly what we will face. Now I'd like to invite you to a battle that is going inside of yourself, actually inside of your gut. Because as you are going and switching from one diet to another, a battle is going on. And if you see all this gunpowder, this is exactly what is going on. Because as we are transitioning from a plant-based diet, the bacteria will change and the battle will go on. The gunpowder would be air being pulled up inside of us, meaning that yes, we will be smelly, but just for a very few days. As we are going from plant to a meat diet, this means that we would be plant-based or vegan, and we would go to a meat diet. This would change, the microbes in our gut would change after about 1 to 3 days. But if you go from meat to a plant-based diet, it takes a little bit longer, mainly because that the healthy plant bacteria needs a little bit more time to grow, because they are growing and they love plant material, fiber. So we have Bacillus, and that just loves to eat amino acids that we have in the meats, in the sulfurs and also in the fat. And what that is leading to is increasing of inflammation, increase in heart disease, and also increase of cancer, which we will go into more detail with why. Prevotella is the bacteria that is mainly dominant in a whole food plant-based diet, and it just loves fiber and different types of starches. And through the science literature, we can see that it is lowering inflammation, and it also lowers the risk of both cancer but also diabetes. When it comes to diabetes, what we are eating has an immense effect. If we have the combination of just sugar by itself, let's say that our blood sugar levels would go up to here. But if we have the combination of milk and sugar, it would elevate almost twice as much. And if we have the combination of milk, sugar, and chocolate as well, it would skyrocket threefold, and also remain in the bloodstreams up to 3 times as long compared if we had just the milk, the sugar, or the cacao by itself. So one of the worst things that a diabetic can get would be milk chocolate, because it would stay inside of the system for much, much longer. So what is a diabetic to avoid when it comes to dieting? Well, everything that is refined, including milk and certain type of wheat, which we will go into in the next slide, and of course several toxins. When it comes to wheat, we have many different types and many different variations. What is called ancient grain is the most preferable for a diabetic. We have old school wheats. This would be kamut, emmer and spelt. These are not refined, but with refined wheat flour, this is a new type of starch that was produced, and this type of starch is called amylopectin A. And what this new chemical does, what this new starch does, is actually skyrockets your blood sugar levels in sometimes more than white sugar. This starch is mainly found in the full grain, meaning that if you get more fiber, like say whole wheat, if you would be eating whole wheat bread, you're actually getting more of this starch, meaning that your blood sugar level will actually increase more compared to if you just had white flour. Now this is a little bit tricky because when it comes to fiber intake, fiber is actually helping us to stabilize our blood sugar levels. But with amylopectin A, it does quite the opposite. So if you'd be talking with a doctor, he would always advise you to have a more fiber-rich diet, except when it comes to whole wheats. But this is just talking about the refined wheat, because if we would have whole wheat spelt, emmer or kamut, the story would be very different because we don't have this type of starch in the ancient grains. Refined wheat came about in the 70s. There was a big food crisis and there were some scientists who came together. How could they produce more food with a limited land available? And that's why they came up with different sources, different wheat, and in the end they came up with the wheat that we know today, because you could have 4 times as much wheat in the same ground, in the same area. It was of course more affordable, and when it came to profit, of course 4 times as much as well. So there's so many benefits, but if we go back to the 70s, we don't really see people with gluten intolerance, wheat issues, and other diseases connecting to wheat and gluten, compared to as we can see today. It's just going up, going up, going up. Then we also have the combination of Roundup. Even here in Europe, it's very normal to use Roundup as a type of fertilizer for the wheat, because it helps to wrap up the growth of the wheat as well. It's easier to harvest, it's easier to collect the different yields from each other, and it's very good for business, of course. But when it comes to health, I don't know how many of you would like to have Roundup on your cereal. This is why I'm always going with organic, especially if I'm going to buy wheat. Luckily, in Scandinavia, in Europe, we don't have a bleaching agent, which they do in the US and also in Australia. This is called alloxan. And this is actually destroying the beta cells, the cells inside of our pancreas producing insulin. So again, if you're diabetic, you are way worse off in Australia, in America, because they have this type of bleach, and that is just destroying the cells producing insulin, making it harder and more difficult to be a diabetic. Research also shows that if you are drinking milk, it can also make it more difficult if you are diabetic. And the reasoning for this is milk contains milk has antigenes in it, and that can produce an immune response, where the cells basically will attack each other. And if we look at a little bit of logic, well, a cow has 4 stomachs, we have 1. And it takes quite a bit of time, effort to digest milk. Dr. Colin Campbell in the China study is the biggest scientific study ever made when it comes to diet and humans. And he showed that there's a 70% risk of developing diabetes if you get milk the first year of life. When it comes to toxins, there's so many things that have a negative effect on our health. There's different molds, there's chemicals, but there's also chemistry within what we are consuming on a day-to-day basis. One of these things would actually be caffeine, which we find in coffee, and also in white, green and black tea, mainly. Even in chocolate. And what caffeine does, it causes cortisol to be produced inside our body. And then we will produce noradrenaline. And what noradrenaline basically does is it is telling our body we need to run because there's a tiger and we don't want to be eaten by the tiger. So that leads to a response of glycogen being poured out into our bloodstream. This is a type of sugar, and now we have all the fuel, all the energy so that we can run away from the tiger. But there's no tiger. We are maybe sitting at a desk doing our job, watching television, something else, maybe sedative. And because we have this extra amount of glycogen in our bloodstream into sugar, we also elevate the risk of becoming diabetics. But how can we manage diabetes? Diabetes is actually quite simple to fix. We had a lady coming to the health retreat where I was working in Australia. And she took 20 units of insulin every single day, 20 units. After just 1 week, she no longer needed her medication. What we did, she got an exercise plan. She started to go on a whole food plant-based diet. We did intermittent fasting, meaning she would get 2 meals a day, massive breakfast, quite well and big lunch, and no dinner. And this helped her to stabilize her blood sugars and no longer need her medication. What we also did was we gave her whole salt. You see, in seawater, that has 91 minerals. And during Second World War, they didn't have enough blood transfusion to give to soldiers that were being wounded during battle. So what they could do was they could take directly salt water into the bloodstream, and that saved a lot of soldiers' lives, because the amount of minerals in the sea as in our bodies is exactly the same. This is what the body wants, this is what the body needs. So why does that make a difference? Yeah, it makes a difference because it is the minerals that actually helps us to absorb the water, so that becomes part of our bloodstream. So if we are getting more minerals, then the body can easier uptake the water that we're drinking. If you were to do a little experiment at home and just substitute the table salt that you have, these only have 2 minerals, and if you would go with something like Celtic salt or sea salt, Himalayan salt, these has 81 minerals. And you would see within a very few days that you don't have to go as often to the toilet as before, just by changing the salt that you're having. Hydration helps a lot for diabetics because it also helps them to stabilize their blood sugar levels. And of course, exercise, especially when it comes to high intensity training, this makes the muscles more sensitive and also helps to manage their diabetes a lot better. And another thing is legumes. This would be lentils, this would be beans. They are very rich in what is called amylopectin C. And This type of starch stabilizes your blood sugars. So let's say you have 1 cup of chickpeas, maybe you made some hummus, you eat that for breakfast or for lunch, that helps to stabilize your blood sugar levels. Let's say that you had a bit of white bread as well, the blood sugar would be here, but we also had some of the legumes, meaning that the blood sugar levels would be more stabilized, and that helps also the body not to produce or need to produce as much insulin, and that helps us to stabilize our blood sugar levels, and this is amazing for if you're diabetic. When it comes to cancers, we also had a lot of cancer guests coming to the retreats. Cancers are a bit more tricky because you don't see improvement as rapidly as diabetes. Nevertheless, we have had so many guests coming to our retreats where they were diagnosed and they were basically giving a death sentence. They would die within half a year. And many of those guests who came did survive because of several reasons. Number one, we provided hope. If you are very depressed and you believe that you are going to die very soon, you are more likely to die very soon. The negativity, the anxiety, everything building up also have a negative effect upon our health. And so by inspiring hope, just by that adds another layer of kind of like, you could connect it maybe to placebo. We know from studies that placebo usually have an increase of like 40% without any other do. So just by inspiring hope helps them to have something to hold on to and to continue fighting. And it's this like fighting mechanism that helps people stay alive. We'll talk more about that when we talk about resilience on Sunday. Also, what we did was a whole food plant-based diet and also intermittent fasting. And as you could see with the bacteria, the risk of cancer would drop as well. Now, the causes of cancer is animal products. This would be both meat and dairy. Different toxins, particular smoking, pollution, but many different toxins are causing cancer. It will be high acidity in the body. So what I was told as a chef to cook for our patients would be a very alkaline diet. A lot of green vegetables and whole food plant-based sources of starch. This would be whole food rice and pasta, quinoa and millet, for example. Because again, these helps to stabilize the blood sugar levels, but they're also very alkalining. The body loves alkaline. So the more alkaline we can do, the better and the healthier for our system. Another thing is to help them with stress, because stress is also causing a lot of acidity to build up in the system. What often happens is you become very shallow in your breathing. And so what happens is you don't get a lot of oxygen inside of your cells, and because of that will trigger more cortisol, but also more acidity in your blood. If you would get more oxygen, you'd be more alkaline just by breathing. Of course, there's genetics, there's environmental factors, but mainly it's your lifestyle. What we usually would tell our guests or our patients is your genetic is the gun, but the trigger, that is your lifestyle. So depending on when the trigger is being pulled, that is mainly up to you. It's basically up to you. You can do so many things to prevent lifestyle diseases through your own lifestyle. Overweight just makes it more tricky, challenging again. Again, we're talking about circulation. The blood have a harder time moving. And of course, if we have more mass, more blood has to be pumped through the system. And by that, we also need even more alkaline in our bodies as well. Alcohol is another factor, also one of the main causes of why we get cancers. We go a little bit more into that later. And of course, refined foods. If we would consume 100 grams of sugar, the white blood cells would be less active by 50% for up to 5 hours after we would drink what is equivalent to 1 liter of Coca-Cola. Just 1 liter, 5 hours, 50% less activity by the fighting things that we have inside ourselves, the white blood cells. So why is it that meat increases the risk of cancer? We have different carcinogenics. We will get it from smoking the meat, from grilling, from frying. The darker the crust, the more carcinogenics you will have on your plate. Again, back to Dr. Colin Campbell with the China study. He could show in the lab cancer growth and also how to fight cancer just by changing the amount of percentages of meat in the diet. If it was 5%, the cancer would starve and it would slowly disappear. But 20% and above, the cancer would be very rapid, go very, very quick. So we could see a very, very clear link between cancer and the amount of meat being consumed. Then we have heme iron. Iron is what is causing the blood to be red. This is what transports oxygen inside of our bodies. So it's something that we are definitely in need of, but if we are getting too much, then it's also a risk. In 100 grams of beef, you have 2.7 microgram of heme iron. For every heme iron, you would increase diabetes risk by 16% and 12% increase for cancer. It's recommended that you would recommended be 350 grams per person per week. But there's no strong health reasons to eat meat. Processed meat like bacon, sausages is very, very high cancer risk because they often contains nitrates and other things connected to it that is just very, very unhealthy, like cholesterol. The more exposure it have had to the air, the higher the amount of cholesterol present as well. When it comes to alcohol, everything that comes into contact with alcohol, the risk of cancer increases from everything that it touches, from the mouth throughout the entire system. If we were to look at colon cancer and the amount of meat, we can see that the higher the consumption, the higher the risk. And here is a graph that proves just exactly these points. This is from all different countries, of course. So again, the higher the amount of meat, the higher the risk of particular colon cancer in this study. When it comes to milk and prostate cancer, we can also see that the higher the consumption, the higher the risk of cancers, of prostate cancer here as well in this other study. Here we have a Harvard study and a Harvard follow-up study. And here we can see by just 2.5 servings, it increases the risk of prostate cancer by 34%. And as they did the follow-up study, even 60%. When it comes to overweight and cancer risk, one of the negative effects is the lack of activity. When we are active, you need to walk at least 10,000 steps a day. If you do so, just by doing that, you lowers the inflammation that you have in your body. And if you're doing it outside, you get more oxygen, meaning that your body starts to be more alkaline as well. So there's so many amazing benefits just by doing exercise, just by walking outside. And of course, there's so many different factors. It will be a poor diet, it will be lack of exercise, and of course, we're not taking genetics into this picture, because we do know that some people gain weight way easier. This could be the metabolism. It can be your diet. It can be your genetics. It can be how you were raised as a kid. We know that kids that were obese when they were very young, they have a higher chance or risk of being obese also as they are adult, what is called fat cells. So fat cells is something that we have from we are basically born. But if we are obese from very, very low age, we will have more of them. And they never disappear from our body, they just shrink. So that's one of the reasons. If we look at calorie density, I find this very, very interesting, because if you're going on a more whole food plant-based diet, you'd see that you don't have to starve yourself. Actually, you feel that you're more full because the fiber takes a lot of space inside of your stomach. And we can also see here that the breakdown rate from vegetables and fruits compared to, for example, cheeses takes way less time. Fruits about 1 to 2 hours, vegetables up to 4 hours, meat 6 to 7 hours, cheeses 10 hours, even some studies say plus 10 hours, because it's such a fermented product with a high amount of fat. It can take a lot of time to digest into the system. And just 400 calories of meat or of cheese or even of oil doesn't give us much. So let's say that you go to McDonald's or Burger King. You'd have fries, you'd have mayonnaise, you'd have a lot of fat in the patty. Even though it looks big, it contains a lot of calories, but you don't really feel full. After just 2 hours, you'll be hungry again after having a Happy Meal. And basically, this is what it comes down to. It has so much fat, but it doesn't really make us full. There's a lot of people who was very in doubt about 20 years ago. What was the cause of the fat epidemic in America in particular? And many said it had to do with the sweeteners. But if we look at science and if we compare the sweetness with obesity, with the amount of cheese that you would consume in America, we can see that these two seems to be linked quite well together compared to the sweetness, This is a pie chart over the saturated fat sources in the US in 05 to 06, and we can see that mainly it's cheeses, and then it's meat and meat dishes. Almost half of what was consumed in the US came from just cheese and meat and meat dishes. Of course, we also have it in nuts, but not as highly consumed as the two other products. We have what is called Adventist Health Study, and this is the second study that we've done. The reason why Adventist has often been a guinea pig, so to say, in the science is Adventists have usually a healthier lifestyle. Low alcohol, if they would drink alcohol at all, no smoking, and it's easier to compare one type of people group next to others, since the scientists could eliminate several factors. People from the Adventist Church who were on a plant-based diet or who was vegan, their BMI was lower. If they were vegetarians, it would be a little bit higher. and if they were non-vegan, it would be higher as well. So we could see that the more plant-based they were transitioning towards, the lower the body mass index. Some cheese products have up to 30% fat. You'd find hormones in milk, and of course also a lot of salt to help with the fermentation, from prohibiting it from rotting, but also to intensify the flavors, of course. This is estradiol. It's similar to estrogen, and we can see how much it just skyrockets during the cow's pregnancy. Not so much from day 100, but from 150 towards 250, it starts to go up. And of course we cannot see in the milk on the back of the label how pregnant the cow was, if I can say it like that. So you don't know how much of estradiol that you will get in your milk. We can just see that the closer it is to delivering her calf, the higher it will be in the milk. Here is a blood sample. This if this would be our normal levels. If you have 0 servings per day, 1 serving would be 1 cup or 250 milliliters, and 18 servings a week. You can see that's not really any big difference between 18 servings and 48 servings. So the question is, what is healthier and what is better? And I would prefer to have this amount in my body, in my bloodstream, because it helps me to have a more balanced hormone level. Which is also the case for men, because we can see that the lower cheese or consumption that we would have, the better would be the sperm in men compared to a high cheese consumption. But when it comes to health, there's so many voices out there. Why is it that one study is saying this and another study is saying this, and within a third study is showing something completely different? I'd like to give you an example. And this is what the National Asthma Council from Australia writes on their website. Dairy foods have often been suggested as a common trigger for asthma, but there is little scientific evidence to support this myth. Unfortunately, most Australians are missing out on the health benefits that come from consuming milk, cheese and yogurt, as they don't include enough dairy foods in their diet. How many have heard that if you have asthma, it will be beneficial for you to go milk-free? Yeah? Okay. An example, my younger brother, as I went on a plant-based diet and I heard about this, my younger brother has been dealing with asthma for all his life. So I gave him a challenge. Try for a period of time, let's say a month, to avoid milk as much as possible. And he did so, and he realized that his asthma became better and better and better. And after a couple of weeks, he didn't deal with his asthma symptoms. Then one day at work, and temptation come. This day they were serving lasagna. He had a hard time resisting the lasagna. He had a massive flight. He was just stuffing his face with the lasagna, with the bechamel, with the cheese sauce. And guess what happened? He had a very, very bad asthma attack. He had to get his inhaler just to get some ease, to be able to breathe again. And that's when it just hit him like a bus that the asthma was directly linked to the dairy. And afterwards he decided to skip it, and he decided also to try and go on a plant-based diet, and he just experienced so many amazing health benefits. He had more energy. When he was exercising, he would recover quicker, meaning he could do even more exercise. And of course, his asthma also disappeared. And after a couple of years, it was just completely gone. And even today, occasionally, he'll be able to have some milk, or actually he can handle milk without any side effects, because he, at least in a long period of time, avoided milk or dairy. But why so much confusion? If we were to look behind the scene, who is paying for the National Asthma Council Australia, we can see that we have a pharmaceutical company, we have a dairy industry, we have more pharmaceutical companies investing in this website. And this is the side effect of science, because we have different companies who have an interest in marketing their products. They would like to sell. They would like to have the consumer to think that their product are healthy and are beneficial for you. So they would pay some scientists, and you would read the studies, and they would sometimes only give you the good effects of it. For example, when I started this presentation, I mentioned how milk, dairy and chocolate was a bad combination. I heard this from a guy who's a professor, works in Australia. He's called Professor Walter White. And when he was a professor at the university in South Africa, he couldn't understand what was going on with the milk, sugar and chocolate, why this combination was worse than any other type of combination. So there came a different professor from a different university, and he shared this lecture, because he was being paid from the chocolate industry to advertise for their product being a healthy product. But when he discovered that milk, chocolate and cacao was just going to skyrocket your blood sugar levels, they couldn't publish this as a healthy food, and therefore they just cancelled the entire study. But of course the scientist still had the information which he shared, and is now public knowledge. So you can see how certain companies, they want to advertise for something, they want your money, they want you to think that their products are good. So they go to the scientists, they pay them, and we get all caught up into what is right, what is wrong, and what is up, what is down. So if we follow the money, usually we can look behind the scenes, and we can see what is good for us. Of course, we also have common sense. Does it make sense to have this type of food compared to this type of food? Often we know, because we would eat it, and then we would have the effects of what we ate afterwards. If I were to eat an apple now, I would feel great. If I were to if I were to drink a glass of Coca-Cola, I would not feel great, because my body is not accustomed to drink a lot of sugar. Speaking of hydration, there's so many side effects that we have just of dehydration. We'll be more likely to have poor memory, more pain in our spine, especially if you have a discus prolapse. One of the first places where the body will take away liquids is from your spinal cord. So if you're feeling that you have more back pain, if you are dehydrated, this is the actual reasoning behind. So by having adequate water, if you have a weak back, if you've had a back injury, this will help you a lot. If you get enough electrolytes and minerals, particular salt, good salt in your diet, then the liquids will help to stay inside of your cells, prohibiting the pain. You will have clearer skin, you will have more energy, toxins will be able to remove. This is amazing. So if you are not drinking enough water, the liver, the different organs in our body doesn't really work. Our kidneys as well. But if we're drinking enough water, then the toxins will be able to be washed out through our urine. Another thing is that if we are sweating, 70% of chemicals can actually be sweated out. So I'm here in Finland and I don't need to encourage you to do saunas because you're already doing it. So just by doing a good sauna, being well hydrated, actually helps you to clear out toxins from your body. This is also good for your brain. It's a brain booster. If you are just slightly dehydrated, it has a negative effect on your memory, both short-term but also long-term memory. Yeah. Also, when it comes to sports, this was a game changer for me when I was both studying but also performing sport myself. If you are, let's say, 4% dehydrated, that would be a loss of performance by up to 40 to 50%. Imagine that you are professional athletes that say that you're going to the Olympics, you are up for the gold medal. You want to be hydrated because just 1% of dehydration would be 10% less performance. You need to be able to perform at your top level to go to the Olympics, of course. So this just shows a brief picture of the importance of liquids. We can absorb about 1.2 liters per hour depending on the conditions. If it's very warm, if it's very cold, not as much, but under ideal conditions, 1.2 liters is what we can absorb per hour. You need about 30 milliliters of water per body weight. So if we do the math, if you are 80 kilos, you need 2.4 liters of water every single day. But here's the catch. Coffee and caffeinated drinks, this would be soda, Coca-Cola for example as well, it actually doesn't hydrate us. It does actually the other side of a coin, it dehydrates us. And studies show that if you're drinking 1 cup of coffee, you would need between 3 and 4 cups of water just to neutralize that 1 cup of coffee. If we were to redo the math, in some of the companies I've been working for in the past, it wasn't unusual for people to drink up to 1 liter of coffee a day. So if we are adding that 1 liter to our math up here, we would end up with drinking 7.4 liters. That's a lot of fluids. How many times do you think you would need to go to the toilet to be able to handle this amount of water? This is why many people who are heavy coffee drinkers, they are always dehydrated. Many would have a headache, and tomorrow we will look at even different causes, negative effects of what coffee and caffeine is doing to our system. So I hope that you'll stay tuned. There's also another thing, and with coffee, because it is so acidic, the body needs to neutralize the acidics through calcium. And this is why studies show that the higher the amount of coffee that you drink, the higher the risk of osteoporosis. This is a study that showed a group of women between the age of 50 and 84. They drank 2 cups of coffee, which is not a lot these days. They risk 69% of hip fracture due to the coffee they were drinking. Just that one thing, 69%. And again, 2 cups of coffee is not really considered a lot these days. Here we have milk consumption and osteoporosis, which is another factor. So we had the coffee, now we're looking at the milk, and we can see that America here is again a top winner next to New Zealand, consuming a lot of milk, but they also have a lot of osteoporosis in both countries, unfortunately. This was basically what I had planned to share today. Tomorrow at 3 p.m., same location, I will share experiences I gained from Australia dealing with anxiety and depression. I had the privilege of taking a majoring education in anxiety depression, and I was asked to facilitate a group of people in a 10-day program, a holistic program where we help them with lifestyle, with diet, with exercise, and much, much more. And I'll share my experiences of how you can boost your mental health and what is the main reasoning, what is the 10 hit categories of why we have anxiety, depression, and what we can do with our lifestyle to change mental health for something better. So I hope to see you tomorrow as well. I hope you stay tuned, and I hope that you enjoyed this presentation, and I want to thank you for coming. Thank you very much. And I think maybe if there be anybody interested, we could do a few different questions, and we can possibly also do some Q&A tomorrow, and we can do a short Q&A session on Sunday. So if there's anybody who would have just a few questions, like to hear a little bit more about that in detail, or what about this, then we can do just a few questions, and you are always welcome to have a chat with me privately afterwards as well, if there's something particular that you'd like to hear something about. Yes?
Since mankind has got a lot of information now through the social media, YouTube, etc., there's a lot of that and good stuff, so we have access to a lot of information.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is good, potentially good. We have expected for a long time now. It's quite obvious. Hello? Aha, okay. Hello? So anyway, Big Pharma.
Yeah.
There was someone a long time ago that said that the root of all evil is the love of money, the mammon.
Yeah.
So I don't point on the Big Pharma, but to coming to the point, since we have access to a lot of information now, we can expect that general people start to dare to question Big Pharma's policies and money making. Can you see a change in general in people's behavior, trusting health more than 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago?
I think so. We have more scientists who's out there advertising a healthier diet. We have, for example, nutritionfacts.org, Michael Greger, amazing doctor. He has done so much to share his knowledge, and he goes through scientific studies, which is easy for him as a doctor, but for a lay people with no medical training, it's just so difficult to go through all these studies. So this is what his business, his ministry is all about, sharing scientific-based information towards our health. We have influencers as well who's passionate about what they're doing, but we also have influencers who are advertising for something that is not as healthy. So again, we have to figure out like who can we trust and how can we trust them. And I'd say when it comes down to common sense, this is what I love from studying sports and studying nutrition. For me, it just seems very logical. There's some nice logic behind it. It makes sense that if I have an apple, it's more beneficial for my system compared to if I would have something that is highly processed. What is difficult is that the highly processed food tastes very good because there's a very big industry behind it with a lot of money who have figured out how to trick our brain to make us addictive to certain foods. This is why they would be high in sugar and high in fats as well. But I'd like to say just one quick statement. and that is we can do a lot of things with changing our lifestyle. Of course, not everything, and there is a time and place for taking a pill and certain medication. But my own preference is, as much as I can do, I always want to go through the natural effects first before I would try and do something with medication. Everything have a time and a place. Yeah.
I probably didn't make myself really clear. I probably didn't make myself really clear to the point. Are there any surveys, polls, or statistics that show that people generally start to understand?
Not to my knowledge, but excuse me, what I can see is people are getting more interested. And I know from Denmark alone that people are spending more money and more time in research for longevity. Longevity has become a very, very popular word. Recently it became part of the Danish dictionary as well, this year or last year. There's longevity clinics in around Copenhagen, and of course different countries and different cities as well. So people are getting more interested in how to live longer and also how to stay healthier. And when it comes to performance, this is also a motivation for many people when it comes to professional athletes or people who enjoy sports. Even people within the business world. If you would go to a business meeting, or if you would go to a convention, you'd have different lectures throughout the day. Many places would offer juicing, so you would basically be able to juice fast throughout the presentations. And if you're fasting or if you are juice fasting, you have more energy, your mind is more clear, helping you to observe and perform better, taking better notes, making better connections. So yeah, I see a higher interest when it comes to health, and more people are just wanting to have a better life, because maybe you have experienced that the medication didn't work. We had so many guests coming to the health retreats where they had tried this and that, nothing helped. But all of a sudden, through something very, very simple, they experienced amazing changes. For example, when I started about 7 years ago at a health retreat in Norway called Fredheim, we had a lady and she was dealing with some type of inflammation in her body. She had been on 5 different stems of penicillin and nothing helped her at all. And I was asked to make a drink for her. We have 2 names for it. One is the flu bomb, another word is Russian penicillin. And what I would do, I'd take ginger, I would take honey, garlic, orange and lemon, and I would blend that with a little bit of water, and I would serve that to her twice a day. Day number 3, she came into the kitchen. She had a big smile on her face. Tears was coming down her cheeks. She gave me such a big hug, and she was so happy because finally there was something that helped. The penicillin didn't help, different things she had tried didn't help, but just something super simple that you can find in the supermarket. Many of us have these things in our fridge at home, and it just worked. And because people experience this, they want to share it with more, and more people get interested in just figuring out how they can get their health back, even of different years, and trying everything except for natural causes of curing various diseases. Yeah?
Yes, you mentioned a while ago about cow's milk,
Yeah.
which is not good. And what would you suggest is the best option?
I really like soy milk, but you have to get soy milk that has not been genetically modified, non-GMO soy. Science show that if you are getting soy milk, non-GMO, then it decreases the risk of certain types of cancer. But of course, if it's GMO soy, it increases the risk. So we always get the natural, the good stuff, and always try to avoid the GMO. So my favorite is soy, but I know that a lot of people really enjoy oat milk. There's a new player around town that is potato milk. It sounds nasty, but I've heard good things about it. I have not yet tried it, but I was like, I'm yet to discover it. My preference, because of health and taste, is soy. Yeah.
Ja, det här vi nu som har ätit, druckit mjölk och ätit kött och så här hela livet, vad ska vi byta om från mjölken?
Ja.
Jag dricker åtminstone mjölk varje morgon med gröten och bären som jag äter och ägg.
Ja.
Vad ska jag byta ut den här mjölken mot?
Yeah, I hope I hope it's okay that I'll answer in English. I was just about to answer back in Danish. It's getting late.
Ja, men då förstår han ju danska.
But I would recommend just going to a plant milk. Try different brand, try different products, and see which one you like the most. If it's soy, if it's oat, or if there's any type of milk that you would like, of the plant milks, because you'd get a healthier alternative to what you're accustomed to. It's just small flavor changes. Another thing that I find fascinating in going on a plant-based diet, as a chef, I discovered that my palate, my taste buds, they became more sensitive. So I'm gonna be honest now, I didn't really enjoy eating salads and different things, but after 3 weeks, it was like my palate became all new. I could sense different things I wouldn't pick up in a salad before, and I was like, wow, is this a salad? Is this an apple? Because when we're eating, as I did, a very heavy fat and salty diet, it numbs your tongue. I think all of us know at least one or a few people, if you're serving them a meal, it's like they brought their own salt just so that they can add more to it. And this is what happens if we have the bad type of salt, the table salt, with only the 2 minerals, because it destroys our taste bud. It numbs our tongue. So we need more of it just to be able to taste the same. So my simple recommendation would be try different plant milks and figure out if there's a brand or a type that you like. And I would advise going with that instead. Yeah, we can do maybe 1, maybe 2 more questions, and then we can call it a day. Yeah.
When I was trying to replace milk, I found millet milk was tasty for me. Do you find millet to be okay as a source?
Which one, sorry?
Like a millet, I think it's called millet milk.
Okay, I haven't tried that.
Okay.
I haven't tried that, sorry. Yeah, we have a last question here.
What is the best way to counteract osteoporosis?
To counteract osteoporosis, there are certain things that is recommended. Of course, no coffee, no alcohol, and go on a more plant-based diet is strongly recommended. What my health director from Misty Mountain Health Retreat, Barbara O'Neill, recommends is getting a cream that is called Anna's Wild Yam Cream. And what Anna's Wild Yam Cream helps is building up your normal hormonal levels, and the wild yam cream helps to produce both testosterone and also estrogen, and that is the estrogen is what takes the calcium inside of your bones. So that's one natural remedy that you can take. You can buy it through Amazon, and what you take is just a little bit of cream. You'd have it here on your neck in the morning, and in the evening you'd have it maybe on the chest. The second day you'd have it under your armpits, and in the evening you'd have it under your belly button, and then you start over again. You do this until your cycle starts, and when your cycle finishes, then you start again. Men can do it and benefit from this cream as well, but they don't need to stop since we have a daily cycle. We don't have like a monthly cycle.
Like my father, he has osteoporosis,
Yeah,
but he also has very high calcium levels in his blood.
yeah, yeah. And the high calcium is often because of high dairy, because the body cannot break down the calcium that you have in dairy. And if we were to do a math equation, because yes, there is calcium in dairy, but it's also acidic, and there's different things in the milk that actually, where the body takes the calcium and try to neutralize it. So if you'd let's say there would be 10 milligrams of calcium in dairy, you would benefit 0, because the body would already use the calcium to neutralize the acids that are in the milk. And different types of calcium is hard to be washed out or broken down into the system, and that is just piling up in the system. What you can do, if you would know exactly the areas where the calcium would be laying, is you can take a natural oil called castor oil, and you can have that on your skin with a wrap, and have that in the area for as long as possible, and that will slowly break down the negative tissues that you have. I do the same a couple of times a year, because I have what is called a tendon knot under my foot. I've had 2 operations in this foot, and it's just a little knot on one of the tendons, and start to grow and become bigger. And at least in the end it becomes super painful. But if I'm applying the castor oil as a poultice under my feet, and I would sleep with it, I would just wear an extra sock to keep it in place. After about a week, I'm pain-free. I can walk with no pain. So I'm not in need of a third operation. And so what castor oil does, it's basically slowly breaking down the negative tissues, and that just get flushed out throughout our system. So with the calcium, I would advise again, no coffee, no alcohol, a more plant-based diet, and green leafy vegetables, because the green leafy vegetables are rich in healthy calcium, building up the bones and building up the good tissues as well.
Thank you.
All right. Well, again, I want to thank you for coming out, and I hope to see you all tomorrow.
All right. Thank you, Kasper. We hope to see you tomorrow also, or hopefully as many as possible of us. Okay, so did you learn something from today? I learned that we should stop smoking, stop drinking alcohol, and go plant-based. So tomorrow, as Kasper said, we will continue at 3 o'clock, and especially if you are interested in coffee, you are more than welcome. And we continue then. And of course, if you are interested in some spiritual stuff, we gather here in church. At 10 o'clock we have Bible study tomorrow, and then 11:30 we have church service. So you are welcome for that also. But otherwise, we see you here at 3 o'clock.
I could quickly say, oh, this is on. I could quickly say that tomorrow is not going to be a normal sermon. It will be me sharing some very crazy stories where God has literally saved my life. So many different occasions. And this is basically what I'll be talking about. I'll be sharing like, why do I believe in God? And I can just say it very clearly because I have experienced Him in my life, in the life of others so many times. And I promise you, the stories tomorrow, they're crazy. So stay tuned.
Yes, and that's at 11:30. And then we continue with the health lectures at 3. Thank you very much. And now, in the end, we will hear Remi, who is going to play and sing for us here a special song. And then you are free to take some infusion and biscuits out there, and we can continue there and also talk to Kasper if you like.
Time just drifts away as I look back on the years. Memories of happiness and better tears. Though it all there was a comfort that cannot be ignored. You were there, teaching me to be your servant, Lord. All along, your hand has been guiding me, shaping my life to be a beautiful song. All along, you've led me through the things that you do would make me strong. Your love has been there all along. Every joy and pain has the seasons of its own. Now I realize that I'm not all alone. The changing seasons of this life were not left up to chance. You were there to be your